Hello, and this is our Unit 6D, and this is when mitosis goes bad. Mitosis and cancer, when the cell cycle goes terribly wrong. Remember, the cell cycle is actually going through all the phases. This is actually, what phase is this when we actually have these things moving around? And we about start forming this plate in here, which is going to start two new cells. But anyway, we're going to make two new cells. So the zygote, the fertilized egg, actually becomes two cells, and the two become four. Then we get to 8 cells, and then eventually we get to like 30 some odd cells. We call it a blastula. And this is a cross section of it. It's more of a sphere of cells. And then very soon after that, we get compartmentalization, we get specialization, we get individual cells becoming different things. In this case, we start making a gastrula, which is going to end up with this gastric system, the stomach, and in this case, we actually end up with an adult sea star, or a lot of people call them starfish, but it's not really a fish. And then Google, showing you a DNA. I don't remember when this thing actually happened, but the DNA does control it. That's when DNA goes wrong or doesn't get read correctly when we get this mitosis, this normal phase of creating new cells going terribly wrong. So when is mitosis a good thing? Got a baby giraffe. So when one cell becomes two and two become four, and we get reproduction, growth and reproduction, we get formation of new cells. Here's one that actually doesn't look like it actually ended up being the attribute that it wanted to be, but we got a new leg. So when you have to add or replace cells due to either adding cells to grow or replacing cells to actually repair, growth and development, repair, and replacement. So you grow as an individual cell. You guys are probably all still growing. You're maybe all still developing. You repair if something breaks, gets torn, gets ripped, and you also can replace cells as cells get older and die. When is mitosis a bad thing? When cells reproduce when they're not needed. These cells either take over organs like in the liver, a brain, skin, bone, marrow, kidneys, but they don't do the right job. They make too much mass and the organ actually fails. These just keep making copies regardless of whether they're needed. There's no control whatsoever. And they make up more. Instead of making 2 cells or 4 cells, they're making 4,000 or 4 million or 4 billion cells. And we call that cancer. These are usually things that damage the organs. They stop the function. If it's a lung, it's really tough to work if you have this big mass in cells. If it's a kidney or a liver or skin, or in this case a breast, the tumor actually goes through and causes all kinds of problems. Now we do have 2 different types of tumors, and we'll talk about those as well. Here is a picture of liver cancer, and you can see the normal liver mass, which does what it's supposed to, and you can see these cancerous tumors. They've actually moved from place to place, or they actually started developing. And I don't know whether this is a metastasized or these are individual places that all went bad at the same time, but this liver is not going to do what the liver is supposed to do. It's not going to filter blood, and eventually it'll end up killing the individual because the blood will become more poisonous with time. Benign versus malignant tumors. Benign tumors are anything that's not cancerous. The tumor grows, it's in one area, and it stays there. Malignant tumors actually jump from place to place within an organ, or they actually do something called metastasize, where they actually get into the blood system and they move from one organ to another organ. And again, this is with time. Do benign tumors become malignant? They probably can, but benign tumor is something that can be gone in there and taken out. Malignant tumors, you try to do that, but if it's moved into a different place in the same organ or it's actually metastasized, it makes it really tough to do that. Mode of growth, benign tumors actually expand. Malignant tumors expand and they also infiltrate. So they'll actually expand in one area, but they'll also infiltrate other cells in other parts of that organ, or they'll actually go to other organs, metastasizing. But how does it get all the energy it's needed? In other words, how do these cells grow? Called angiogenesis. We need the formation of the formation of basically blood vessels. So here we have a small tumor that's grown with one cell becoming two and two becoming four and all the way up here. Malignancy can only work if we get these hungry cells because they're growing faster than normal cells. We got to get them food. And the way we do that is we make new blood vessels. So what the tumor does, it actually starts producing what are called angiogenic factors. It actually produces chemicals that come down, proteins that actually come down and make the blood vessel start growing. And then eventually we actually have nutrients from blood, and we have basically urea and things coming away, carbon dioxide coming away, but we can also get these cells to metastasize this way. They get into the blood vessel and they move to other places. So we have a basic somatic cell, which is a normal cell. We'll talk about the difference between somatic cells and sex cells, but somatic cells are cells that do everything except for sperm and eggs for the genesis. We have a small tumor. The tumor starts producing these proteins that get blood vessels to grow up. And then we actually get it fed, and it does everything for normal that it would do for normal organs. It does it for this new block of cells. Excuse me. And then what we can do is we can actually throw in some angiogenic inhibitors, which will actually go through and stop the formation, which will eventually stop the growth of the tumor and maybe even stop the metastasizing of this tumor. But there's a lot of things we're trying to do. We can just get the body to identify this as something that's not normal, like it would normally do for a pathogen. We can get the body to fight it too. There are lots of ways we think we can probably do away with cancer. Why would cells just make copies? If DNA gets damaged, like we talked about with that Google document, if the DNA loses its ability to send out information, or the cells stop listening to the correct instructions, we can start getting these. And these are what are called mutations. And mutations can be caused by UV light, ultraviolet radiation, which is coming from stars and space, as well as maybe some man-made lights. Chemical exposure, which could be even up to the foods that we eat and the chemicals that are in the food. The radiation exposure, too close to cell phones, too close to Fitbits, too close to anything else which are producing radiation may actually cause mutations. Heat can actually change the proteins and make them different. We have cigarette smoke, the addition of man-made addition. This is a choice. Some of these others are choices too, but cell phones exposed by somebody sitting next to you can cause mutations, as well as cell phones that are actually on your body or close to your body. And there's a lot of talk about moving it close to your head and the brain actually being mutated. Pollution from water, air, and food. Age, the older you get, the more likely you're going to get copies of copies of copies, and then sooner or later they don't get there. And then we also have genetics that play a process of these mutations. Egglets, these are actually the things that are at the end of shoelaces to keep them from fraying, so that you can actually put them through those little eye holes and eventually tie your shoe. Well, DNA's got the same thing, so they're called telomeres. And these telomeres are actually protective tips on the end of the DNA, and there's some talk about as you get older, these things actually disappear. They stop being produced in the new DNA, and then the DNA unravels, and eventually it's not able to replicate itself, or it can't replicate itself correctly, and this could actually be what causes old age and eventually death, as well as mutations. So we have two different types of tumors. We have what are called benign tumors. These are abnormal cells that remain in the original site. So this tumor in this breast would actually stay at this one location. Most do not cause serious problems, and we can go in there and we can actually remove these things surgically. Tumors that are malignant have a different issue. These cells leave the original site. they actually grow larger, moving into different parts of that one organ, and they do what's called metastasizing, where they actually get into the bloodstream and they'll move to other locations. So it's carried from the bloodstream to other tissue, starts more tumors in other places, either in the same organ or in different organs, and damage the function of the organs throughout the body, the breast, the liver, the skin, the blood, the brain, the kidneys, the pancreas. All those things do not work correctly. And there's the malignant tumor, where it actually starts invading different parts of the organ and actually metastasizes to move throughout to other organ systems. And the treatments for cancer, basically, again, these cells are growing rapidly. They need material very quickly. They actually steal material from the rest of your body. So the way we can do that is we can actually kill these rapidly growing cells by producing chemicals that go into your body that will kill all your cells. This is why your hair falls out. It can be eyebrows, beards, in my case, or other things. But it can also go through and kill these rapidly developing or dividing cells. The chemotherapy, the deadly chemical, actually is going to affect those cells probably more than it would a normal cell. So we can actually kill the cells that way. And by putting poisonous drugs that rapidly kill the dividing cells, we can also use radiation, and the radiation goes in again, and if we aim it correctly, it kills the cells that we're trying to hit, and these are again the rapidly developing cells. But remember, there are always side effects. You can lose your hair, as this young lady did, but you can put wigs on. It can actually burn your skin. It could actually damage other organs of your body. It can cause other problems. So basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to kill the fastest growing part of you, which hair is that issue. And so there are definitely side effects to cancer and mitosis. Okay, that's the end of the section. I appreciate you stopping by, and that was again 6D, when the cell cycle goes wrong.